Lauren Southern. Boy, this is an old one. This video just came out on Friday, on Juneteenth. I choose to believe that that was not deliberate, but it could have been. Lauren Southern is probably most famous for being directly the inspiration for a mass shooter. Let me see. Trying to remember which one it was. Was it the El Paso killer? Um, um, yeah. Christchurch. Yep. Okay. So the Christchurch shooter I'm pretty sure it was a Christchurch shooter, titled his manifesto The Great Replacement. The Great Replacement theory is one put forward by Lauren Southern herself about how, depending on who you talk to, I don't know if I'm pretty sure she is explicitly blamed Muslims, but basically this idea that the that some group, whether it's Jews or Muslims or black people, some group is trying to replace white people in Western civilization. And they're doing so to weaken it and destroy it and make it whatever. This is one of Lauren Southern's biggest claims to fame. And about a year ago, a little over a year ago, in fact, she dropped off the internet. She stopped making videos, stopped posting to social media. And this was not a sudden thing. She announced that she was going to stop doing this. And now she's back. I'm going to speed this up a little bit because she talks a little slow. So, hey, TFGF David and Thick Boy, thanks for the follows. Appreciate it.
Hey everyone, it's been a minute, and wow.
Oh, I know it's not her theory, but she's one of the biggest proponents of it. You know, just go out and ask random people complex political issues about a 1 or 2 sentence reply. True.
Things have really gone off the rails since I've been gone.
The World Health Organization has declared coronavirus a global
We begin tonight with the U.S. population census, the terrifying scale of Australia's bushfires.
Unemployment to its highest level since the Great Depression.
Overnight, Minneapolis on fire. Protesters leaving an
Good year to take off, I suppose. Seriously though, I hope you all have been keeping relatively safe and healthy throughout all of this chaos. Now, it's been just over 1 year since I stepped away from social media. Some of you may not have even noticed that I was gone. I dropped Borderless, left a small note, and dipped. And I suppose because I was so vague, I really left room for people to impose their own narratives on my departure. A lot of things have been said about me since I left. Some far more slanderous than others, and I'm sure I'll address that at some point. However, I don't want to waste this video in particular mud wrestling with pigs, especially when you just get dirty and they just get happy. So instead, how about we talk about where I've actually been and what my actual motivation was for leaving politics? Well, firstly, I have some really exciting news that many
Take it easy, TFGF David.
of you had no idea about last year, which is that I was married and pregnant, and I just found out about my son right before the release of Borderless. I've always kept my cards close when it comes to my family because unfortunately, the modern political coliseum seems to have zero boundaries whatsoever or respect for people's privacy. But I did decide to share a tiny bit this January on my Instagram just because it's something that has brought me so much joy and is such a blessing in these crazy times. It was pretty hard to not at least put a bit of it out there for you. But definitely it was a very special thing for me and an important thing for the first part of my son's life and his birth to be just for myself and just for my family. None of the social media or the world's eyes on it. That was just for us. Another thing I did was I took some time to get back into education and to nurture a more contemplative part of my soul and my faith and really recenter what was important in my life, like family, friendships, and community. It is definitely an interesting experiment to take a step back from the internet for at least a few months, see what's left of your life when you take away the social media, the internet fame, and the online tribes you're a part of. Have you built something meaningful outside of that? Is your purpose still there when the screen is off? There was definitely a point where I don't think I could have said yes to this, and there are probably far too many people that are Gen Z or millennial like me that have been in that boat before. Which brings me to another point, and that is family was not the only reason I took a step back, although it was a main one. I plan to take an extended break from the internet and media for a while anyway.
Do you think she's going to mention the fact that the title of her video was used as the title of a mass shooter's manifesto? Like, again, I know that it wasn't her pet theory alone. Other people have put forward this theory, but do you think she's going to talk about how the theory she put forward, was used as part of a manifesto? Probably not. She doesn't take responsibility like that.
Ways just to get my head out of the fishbowl and observe with a
True, Dodge.
sober view the world that I was a part of. And to be real with you guys, the world I was a part of, especially earlier on in my YouTube career, was a very unhealthy one. And I mean, to be fair, most of you have probably been on Twitter before, so pointing out the toxicity of political or even just internet culture in general is probably the least shocking thing you have heard this year. Wow, the internet is toxic and it's bad for you. Shocking revelation, Lauren. Seriously though, I do want to be clear, actually, that when I'm talking about this toxic culture, especially in politics, I am not talking about regular everyday conservatives or regular liberals. What I am talking about is the forever onliners, the people who have lost themselves to a character or entire personality composed of partisan talking points, the extremists who can no longer see the humanity in their political opponents or even just
Casual reminder, the Trump administration, everything they stand for, and by extension conservatives, are all objectively evil and stupid, and often both. All I can do is hope to survive these days in which bigotry and ignorance rules. God, I'm so tired. I don't see much. I do have a little bit of a quibble with saying that all conservatives are objectively evil. Well, no. Conservatives are either evil or stupid, often both. Yes, I will agree with that. So yeah, I agree with this 100%.
other groups based on race or gender. The leaders of all
There are no good racists. No. There are no good misogynists. True. There's no good traitors. True. There's no good bigots. True. There's no good lackeys. True. There are no good Republicans. True. They traded character for unconditional loyalty to Trump. They all checked good at the door. Yep.
all these movements that are fighting over the last shreds of a dwindling social talking point market, and the cults that have seemingly formed where everyone views themselves as the hero.
I guess I feel that way, next SVK, because in order to accept conservative theory, you either have to deliberately ignore data which contradicts reality, or you have to ignore data which shows that your position is wrong, or you have to be stupid enough to not have seen that data. Most conservative positions are untenable with society. Not to say that leftist or liberal positions are all, congruent with reality. But the denial of trans people, the denial of gay people, the way they position like racial situations. There may be exceptions, but they're rare, and they're definitely not the ones setting the tone in conservative spaces. Democrats are the left. There are no good Democrats. Left Democrats are not controlled by radical left. Democrats are the radical. No, Democrats are not radical left.
In the story, whilst anyone on the other side is irredeemable scum. Then, of course, there's just the 24-hour news cycle in general, which seems to make anyone involved just focus in on.
It's not, in fact, next SVK. Where is it? I put it in. I've linked this before. In fact, I think you were in chat when I did it. But if you scroll down to LGBTQ issues, the second major heading, you'll see a number of studies demonstrating, scientific studies, demonstrating the validity of trans people. So, denial of trans identity is not scientific in any meaningful way.
People's worst moments, their mental breakdowns, and bad arguments like a shark searching for blood. We have entered an age where your worst 2 minutes will define you for the rest of your life, because that's what people want to click on. A world void of nuance. One where even serious political debate has just been substituted for partisan sneering and mockery. Argumentum ad cringe, if you will, where we seem to have taken the position that if something can be mocked, that it can't possibly be right, as if human instinct about what's laughable is somehow divinely inspired. This whole mess, this whole just disaster that I was a part of, it is something that I began realizing in people around me, and then I started to see within myself as well, that I was actively assisting in creating this culture of entertainment and hot take politics. So I think it was mid 2018, I decided I wanted to change the way I approached things and do only documentaries instead, a more meaningful deep dive into the issues that I cared about. And I truly loved how this experience went. Instead of some big dramatic closing paragraph to my last documentary, Borderless, concluding the situation one way or the other, we concluded that there were two sides to every story, that perhaps everyone involved...
Ooh, that radical centrist take. Nice. Yikes. There's two sides to every story, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. Depends on the situation, because one side could be telling the truth based on, objective scientific data, and the other could be distorting or ignoring that data to tell their story. In which case, yes, there are two sides, but one is correct and one is not. This radical centrist approach doesn't work with a lot of issues these days.
The victim of political and business corruption, that these big polarizing issues are so often far more gray than we realize. That the migrants we sat with in the camps and on the shores of Turkey, that were taking dinghy boats to what they saw and believed was going to be a better life promised to them by traffickers and politicians, that was a human story, a human struggle worthy of being told. The same human struggle that I've always recognized amongst people in Europe, who feared the loss of their culture and the economic and social impacts to change in their home. Too often in media, it is treated as if these experiences are mutually exclusive. And I used to have this perspective as well, that because the mainstream media or the leftist media was already telling one side of the story, that it was my job to tell the other. But in reality, it should be everyone.
What leftist media? I love this when they claim like MSNBC or CNN are leftist media. They're liberal as fuck. They're neoliberal as fuck. There's nothing leftist about these. I mean, unless you consider advocating for people's basic human rights leftist, in which case that says more about your beliefs than theirs.
One's job to show both. And just because you see others not doing it doesn't mean you should partake in a childish tit for tat. Otherwise, you're not going to get the real story at all. You need a full picture in order to come to meaningful, insightful.
Thanks for the follow, one more peasant. Appreciate it. Even pandering to the Democratic Party is not leftist by any means. The Democratic Party is, thanks to the influence of people like groups like the Justice Dems and from Bernie Sanders, they have moved somewhat significantly left, and they are quite left on social issues. But there's a lot of connotations with calling someone leftist that the Democratic Party does not in any means fulfill.
Conclusions. And this is one of the big reasons that I've decided to come back now. I am seeing absolute chaos going on in the world and very little room for nuance or genuine thoughtful content. Our news is getting summed up by...
No, Dems are liberals. Yeah. Bill Maher, fuck. Do you still watch Bill Maher, Dodge?
Twitter videos made to promote one cause or another, name-calling, doxing, hashtag wars. It's really hard to watch. And I really believe that people are longing for a more sober approach, because the world is a lot more complex than just all cops bad, all cops good, post black square or you're a racist, or black people are all just looters and rioters. I'm not some radical centrist here, but I think we all know deep down these massive cultural issues have human stories to them, to every side of them. And too often we prefer to just ignore the humanity in the stories that don't quite fit with our narrative. And in my traveling and my on the
Okay, I think I see where she's gonna go with this. So she's starting out at this centrist. There's two sides to every story, but she's probably just going to happen to show the stories which promote a conservative narrative, or at least maintain the status quo, which is functionally the same thing, and just happen to show stories that promote this conservative narrative. That's how she can maintain this. She's not saying she's a radical centrist, but she's acting like one. Now I watch Bill Maher for the same reason I look at story because oh, good.
groundwork with Borderless, even just life experience over this last year, a big way that I've changed personally, and one of the best things I've learned, is to approach things with a sense of I don't know everything. Because none of us do. I think the people in charge of public discourse in our society too often are expected to be experts in everything. Celebrities, politicians, social commentators were literally coached to avoid ever saying the phrase, I don't know. You find a way around it, you give a super general answer, or you read the answer your publicist wrote for you. And you better be able to give a smile and a word to every social and political crisis the news pops out that week, or you're a moron, or you're canceled for being silent. And what this has led to is this bizarre culture at the moment where everyone has to take a stance on things.
I don't actually disagree with her here. I do think this idea that pundits and politicians not being able to say I don't know, that's a bad idea. That I understand that we want our leaders to appear confident, like they know what's going on. But I have a lot more confidence in a leader who says, I don't know about that. Let me find out. Let me learn about that. Now, obviously, this depends on the situation. If it's been like if someone was interviewed and was like, "What do you think about the protests going on around the country?" and they're like, "I don't know anything about that." That's a little questionable there. But if it's something a little more esoteric, a little less, not something they would necessarily know about, then them admitting they don't know, but especially as long as they followed up, like we were taught in the call center, I don't know, let me find out. Let me get someone who does. Let me learn about that. Let me, some sort of follow up that's like, I'm not dismissing this issue. I don't know enough to say on it. That creates that at least in my opinion inspires more confidence than someone who gives, like she said, a general answer, or an answer that is generic, or just what some publicist came up with. Because I would rather someone be willing to admit they don't know something. And obviously I understand that a big part of this is that an I don't know gets jumped on by the media. But it also creates the situation where someone is forced to make a statement out of ignorance in a moment, and then they can't go back on it, or else they get accused of being disingenuous or a flip-flopper or whatever.
Even if they feel completely uneducated on a subject. I have friends of mine posting black squares on their Instagram and messaging me after saying, I have no idea what this means, but I don't want people to hate me. I have other friends of mine in acting and media who have had their publicists or agents force them to make statements through gritted teeth on recent political issues because it's bad for their career if they don't. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter what your cause is to me, even if it's something I'm extremely supportive of, even if it's something super basic that we should all understand and agree on. At no point in a well-functioning society should every single person, every single corporation, every single politician, beauty guru, appliance shop, and even your Xbox feel the need to put out a political statement for fear of the masses taking their silence as betrayal.
Wow. She's completely ignoring the possibility that. Now, I will grant you, rainbow capitalism basically teaches us that if brand is supporting something, that there's a good chance they don't actually care. They just understand that they need to maintain that goodwill. But she's subtly indicating there that most of the people posting Black Lives Matter, the Black Square, or whatever, is virtue signaling. They're just saying, "Oh yeah, I support it because if I don't, they'll come for me," ignoring the fact that a lot of people do support this full-throatedly. And while yes, it's not great that corporations pander by these, virtue signal posts. Said it before and I say it again. I would rather corporations virtue signal to progressive issues than for them to sincerely endorse regressive issues. Because the thing is that the more we get them to virtue signal towards these progressive issues, the more it becomes ingrained that they are progressive, and the harder they fall if it comes out they're actually not. Ideally.
Trail and socially or even financially ostracizing and destroying them. Compelled speech just never really ends well. Because what happens when that message isn't so kind? What happens when you create a culture like this and that message becomes one that is violent or oppressive and no one is allowed to question it and everyone is afraid of speaking up?
I really, really hate this. And Ogre Warlock said something similar earlier about how the leftists, you can't question it and it's not your responsibility. No. Leftists are taught to question everything. Well, properly taught leftists. There's a number of dogmatic leftist people out there who there are certain things you don't question. And when I say question everything, there are certain things which we have solid answers for, like gender theory, like gay rights, like racial rights, which questioning our position on them is, okay, here's the question, here's your answers. But if we get new data, we're more than willing to change our position on them. Whereas conservatives only change their position when they are forced to. And even then, for most of them, it's pretty clear that it is a performative virtue signaling change. That they actually didn't change their mind, they didn't change their beliefs, they just stopped saying the quiet part out loud.
Let alone to even be silent on an issue. It's not like things like this haven't happened in history before. And when people get into lockstep, it is very hard to get them out because no one wants to take that fall. It's creating an extremely dangerous precedent, and I don't want that precedent to ever be set one way or another. And this is why, going forward in documentary making, I don't plan to be a part of any political groups. I want to be open to any conclusion when I investigate an issue. We have got way too much egoistic certainty in media, and that's something I really hope to work to pull myself away from. And you know what? I just want to leave.
I would be willing to give her the benefit of the doubt if she hadn't had such solid positions before. Like, not solid in the good sense, but like she sincerely believed in the Great Replacement. At least that's the way it seemed. One of her most famous videos is her strolling through France and talking about how there were no French. I don't. She definitely zeroed in on any time there were brown people around. But she also claimed that there was evidence of the degeneration of French culture or whatever. And so you'll forgive me if I'm somewhat skeptical about this idea that you'll refrain from any kind of partisan political commentary.
Leave it at that with going forward because I was initially thinking about doing this video where I clarify my beliefs. I explain that I'm not this extremist that people think I am, that I'm just curious for the truth without hate. And I wrote this whole thing explaining it. And then I kind of thought to myself, I'm like, why do I care so much about these people that are misrepresenting me? When the kind of growth that I'm pursuing as an individual and as a creator isn't one forced by a crowd of progressives demanding an apology tour and that I change my opinions on videos I've made or they'll ban me and cancel me. Because that's not growth. That's just more appealing to a mob, and it's not real. And I know people that can chant progressive slogans through gritted teeth to keep their jobs or because their agents told them to do it, and it's just not something I can do. I don't see it. It's not genuine. It's not real, and I think people should know that. I think they should know that a lot of the celebrities and the people they look up to in media and politics and their YouTube heroes that make posts about politics, they don't always believe those things in private. They're doing it because they don't want to be axed or guillotined by the.
So it's funny she says this. There's actually been a number of people. Shoe on Head has made this claim a couple of times of a number of right-wing YouTubers and commentators don't actually believe what they say. They just know they have to do that for their audience. And Hunter Avallone actually is one who basically admitted that for a while he was one of those people who was just saying what he needed to say to appease his audience until he decided he couldn't do that anymore and he was going to be honest no matter what happened to his audience. Which I support Hunter Avallone in doing that. That takes a lot of guts. But what she's implying here is that a number of people who are on the progressive side don't actually believe that. And while I'm sure there are a number of, Hollywood celebrities and those kind of people who don't believe in the progressive things they support, I also don't believe that there are as many progressive YouTubers who don't believe what they put forward. Like, we don't have the fall in line mentality on the left that the right does. So there's less, and also we don't have the external financial support that people on the right can get. So there's less incentive for people to grift to the left. It's why I always find it funny when people accuse people like Sean or Xanderhall or Vosh of grifting for the left. Like, why would you grift for the left? If you were going to... And the implication, of course, if you're grifting for the left, that you're actually a conservative or you don't actually hold those beliefs, but you're doing it for money. So if you're doing something dishonest, why would you grift for the left? There's so much more money in grifting for the right. Like, I'll be honest. I had a moment when I started doing this where I thought about grifting for the right, about making those, conservative videos and shitting on trans people, but I just can't do it. I couldn't make it and advertise it to people I know. And I wouldn't be able to do it. So this idea that you grift for the left is just absurd. There's no money in it. There's no, it's just absurd. And that's her implication, is that there are people on the left grifting when there's hardly any money in grifting on the left.
Public right now. And I also want to mention that I also don't see the possibility for growth when I'm constricted by the expectations of an online right-wing tribe, that I hold certain beliefs or I'm not a part of them anymore. Because I also have questions and criticisms within the right as well. There are some issues there. I want to just genuinely look at the world, even if it bursts my bubble of what my preconceived notions may have been. So maybe because I've been gone so long and I've kind of made these statements, people will want some sort of statement on where my views are at now. Well, I am growing as a person. I don't know everything and I am excited to learn more, and I want to let my work speak for me going forward. If anything, I'd say I've taken the real life pill. I think people are multidimensional, complex beings, and they are worthy of trying to understand. You can't sum them up in a tweet you found 6 years ago, and you can't sum them up as a race or a gender, which too often polarizing political internet communities try to do. It really sometimes feels like we are just caught up in this massive maelstrom of lies, and I mean, Peterson has mentioned this before too.
Yeah, go ahead, Nexus VK.
We need people to start speaking honestly, and a lot of the problems we're facing could be fixed. We need to stop with the carefully constructed statements to avoid social and political landmines or the chaotic partisan talking points. Anyways, I could talk for ages on this subject, but I do want to eventually get to the big ticket item here, and that is that after a year of being away and considering all of this and looking at the absolute state of the world right now, I want to make documentaries again. And I want to make some damn good ones. Because I have seen how valuable it has been for my own life and how valuable it is for so many others. I still to this day get tons of emails telling me how Borderless really changed people's perspectives and how people wish I'd make more content like that. I get your messages. I read them all. I appreciate them. I know I can't always reply, but I do read them all. And genuinely, they really convinced me that I should come back and try to change some of the things in this world instead of being so jaded by media. So coming back into media, I really want to go forward approaching the world with a genuine open mind, open to both the rational and emotional aspects of being human. Not facts over feelings, but facts and feelings, because facts help us operate in this world, but love and compassion are what make it worthwhile. We have to show people why the statistics and graphs matter, rather than commentating.
I mean, I agree with that. I think that the facts over feelings is what led to the YouTube skeptosphere getting as shitty as it got. And it's what's led to a lot of conservatives, even though they don't actually have the facts on their side, they think they do, succeeding as they have. Facts are cold and hollow without feelings, but feelings are pointless without facts. Like that, I do honestly believe that you need both to create a better world. So I agree with her there. I'm just skeptical she'll do so in a positive or responsible way. Yeah, I'm 32 next.
With such confidence and zealotry from the stands, I want to enter the arena and give those on the ground a voice. Instead of taking down the straw men, I want to highlight the steel men on both sides, offering the best and brightest to challenge your mind. I don't want to set my eyes on any exact documentary yet, because there are at least a dozen I'm considering. Definitely what's going on in the States is a big one. However, I really want to invite you guys to be a part of the documentary making process as well, helping me narrow down and decide which documentary I'm going to make, seeing how the creation, filming, and editing occurs behind the scenes. Plus, this will really help finance the creation of these documentaries themselves. I often think about how it would be significantly cheaper, less stressful, just doing 4-minute videos, social commentary with my webcam on the latest terrible Vice article that came out. There's definitely no overhead cost, security, flights, hotels, sleepless nights, or getting arrested by the Turkish police or military.
For trying to stop refugees from landing. Yeah, that's another famous thing Lauren Southern did, was she got in a boat and tried to prevent refugees from landing in Europe. And yeah, she was arrested by the Turks. So, yeah.
Hell, I mean, man, documentaries are stressful. There was one Airbnb we stayed in Spain where we literally had to boil like 4 pots of water for an hour if you wanted to take a bath that week. And that was just how it went.
To anyone who says white privilege isn't a thing, there are people in America right now who have to do this. Particularly in Flint fucking Michigan, but in many other parts of the world too. And not just because they have bad infrastructure, but because, maybe they live in a shitty apartment because that's all they can afford and the landlord has no inclination to fix things. I've talked to people who had to boil water in order to take a bath because they had no hot water. This is not something unique to Europe or South America or what have you, like she's trying to imply here. This happens in America.
I'm going to be real. It's not easy making documentaries. They are stressful. They are hard work, and there are a lot easier things to do in media. But it's doing something meaningful. It's not just taking shots from a comfortable studio or living room. It's really exploring what's going on the ground, and that's what makes it worthwhile. So I really do hope some of you consider joining me on that mission. If you'd like, you can go and check out the links below this video and join me on Subscribestar, because
of course she's on Subscribestar.
I can't really be on Patreon, can I? I also know, though, that it is tough times, so if you can't support me, no worries. I always intend to make my documentaries free to watch because the intention of them is for as many people to have their perspectives broadened as possible. So I suppose going forward, I will see some of you on my next live stream on Subscribestar, where I'll be answering your questions and chatting about my pitches. And as for everyone else, I'll probably see you at my next documentary announcement once it's confirmed. I am now going to go sing the Bananas in Pajamas theme song for the...
Okay, yeah. This could be interesting. If she has legitimately turned over a new leaf, and as a leftist, I sincerely believe in rehabilitation and the possibility of people changing. So it's possible that she has, in fact, changed and that she will make more balanced documentaries going forward. But I don't hold a lot of hope here. Like, I don't see how taking a year off from social media, getting married, and having children, having a child, would have given her the material conditions to change her beliefs that much. But we'll see. I mean, someone can use a 680,000 YouTube subscriber channel to promote some actual balanced documentaries, then hey, more power to them. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to like, share, and leave a comment because it helps me. Subscribe and ring that bell to help you. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.